Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the ultimate blueprint of a champion. We're going to unpack the underlying physiology of how sports talent is actually identified and developed. Think of it like reverse engineering elite athletic performance. We'll explore the physical hardware of our bodies, the internal engines that drive them, the exact fuel we need to consume, and the critical biological maintenance required to keep it all running. It's really about how all these individual pieces synthesize to create absolute greatness.
To ground this whole discussion, let's start with a really powerful quote. "Your love makes me strong, your hate makes me unstoppable," by Cristiano Ronaldo. This perfectly hits the nail on the head when it comes to the blend of environment, psychology, and biology. Now, Ronaldo's story is one of incredible adversity. He was born into poverty in Madeira, and tragically, his father passed away from liver failure tied to alcohol abuse when Ronaldo was just 20 years old. Because of that, Ronaldo actually maintains a strict abstention from alcohol. He even avoids getting tattoos just so he can regularly donate blood. That level of absolute physical discipline and profound respect for his own physiological health, that's the literal foundation of his success. He's living proof that athletic talent isn't just some innate, magical trait you're born with. It is a highly complex synergy of biological, behavioral, and environmental factors that you cultivate over time.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're breaking this down into 5 core pillars. First, muscle fibers and talent. Second, energy systems in sports. Third, fueling athletic performance. Fourth, the science of sleep. And fifth, synergy for athletic development. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, Muscle Fibers and Talent. This is the hardware.
Okay, think of your skeletal muscles as having 2 completely different sets of gears. On one hand, you have type I, or slow twitch fibers. These rely on oxygen, they are incredibly fatigue resistant, and they take about 110 milliseconds to reach peak tension. They are literally built for long-duration endurance grinds. On the flip side, you have type 2, or fast twitch fibers. These operate anaerobically, meaning without oxygen. They are hyper-explosive, hitting peak tension in just 50 milliseconds. And it actually goes a layer deeper. Type 2 is broken down into type 2A, which is kind of a hybrid, and type 2X, which are your super-specialized fibers for rapid, maximum explosive movements.
When you zoom in on a biopsy sample with an electron microscope, the genetic distribution of these fibers inside the muscle becomes crystal clear. The red coloration you're seeing indicates those endurance-focused, slow-twitch fibers, while the white indicates the explosive, fast-twitch ones. And here's the thing, genetics heavily dictate this distribution. So when specialists are identifying talent, an athlete packed with predominantly type 1 fibers is biologically hardwired for marathon running or cross-country skiing. Conversely, someone loaded with type 2 fibers has the baseline hardware to dominate in weightlifting, gymnastics, or the 100-meter sprint.
But here's the catch. Getting a muscle biopsy is incredibly invasive, and frankly, it's painful. We need a practical way to test this in the gym. Enter the Hatfield test. This is a brilliant, non-invasive workaround. Here's how it works. Step 1. You find the athlete's 1 rep max on a major lift, like a vac squat. Step 2. They rest for exactly 15 minutes. Step 3. You load the bar with 80% of that maximum weight and have them lift it to absolute failure. Step 4 is the analysis. If they tap out at fewer than 7 reps, they are fast twitch dominant. But if they can grind past 8 repetitions, they are slow twitch dominant. It is a super practical way to identify a person's physiological makeup without ever needing a lab.
Moving on to Section 2, Energy Systems in Sports. Let's look at the engine.
So, for long-duration activities, your body heavily relies on its aerobic system. And there are 2 absolutely critical markers that define this capacity. First up is VO2 max. Think of this as the absolute maximum amount of oxygen your body can inhale, transport, and actually use during intense exercise. The second is your lactate threshold. This is basically your red line. It's the exact point where lactic acid starts piling up in your blood way faster than your body can clear it out, which is what causes that massive wave of fatigue. In talent identification for sports like cycling or rowing, walking in the door with a naturally high VO2 max and a high lactate threshold gives you an unbelievable physiological head start.
But different sports demand completely different engines. Take a 100-meter sprint. That event is 90 to 95% reliant on the alactic anaerobic system. That is pure, instant, oxygen-free energy, and it burns out in just a few seconds. Now compare that to a basketball game, which uses a mixed bag: 20% alactic, 50% lactic anaerobic, and 30% aerobic. Then you look at a marathon, which is a whopping 95% reliant on the aerobic energy system. Understanding exactly how these energy demands break down is the whole key to how specialists train and recruit athletes for specific sports.
All right, Section 3,
fueling athletic performance. You can't run a high-performance engine without the right fuel.
It all starts with the math. How much energy does an athlete actually need? To figure this out scientifically, specialists use the Mifflin-St. Jean equation. By plugging in an athlete's weight, height, and age, you find their basal metabolic rate, or BMR. That's just the baseline energy your body needs to keep the lights on if you were literally resting in bed all day. You then multiply that BMR by an activity factor to get the total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE. This is absolutely crucial because if an athlete doesn't hit this baseline energy requirement, their body panics. It enters a catabolic state and actually starts breaking down its own muscle tissue for energy, which completely derails athletic progress.
And speaking of muscle tissue, if we want to preserve and grow it, dietary protein is the star of the show. The research lays out a very specific daily requirement for athletes, 1.2 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, protein isn't your primary energy source when you're working out. Carbs and fats handle that heavy lifting. But this specific protein range is non-negotiable when it comes to repairing the microscopic muscle tears that happen after intense training sessions.
What about supplements? While the evidence behind a few common ones is actually incredibly solid, creatine is a real game changer for explosive power because it directly increases creatine phosphate stores right inside the muscle. Caffeine is a thoroughly proven stimulant that boosts endurance and helps mobilize fatty acids. Beetroot juice is a fascinating one. It's packed with nitrates, which your body turns into nitric oxide, physically expanding your blood vessels and boosting oxygen absorption. And then there's glutamine, which is fantastic for reinforcing the immune system, particularly when an athlete is going through a grueling, heavy training block.
This brings us to Section 4, the science of sleep. This is where the biological maintenance happens.
Sleep is not just your body powering down, it's a highly active recovery phase. The sleep cycle is split into non-REM and REM sleep, but the real magic, that happens during stage 3 of non-REM sleep, better known as deep sleep. This makes up about 20 to 25% of your total sleep cycle. During this specific window, your brain triggers a massive dump of anabolic hormones, like growth hormone. That surge is the secret sauce for muscle repair and energy restoration. And at the exact same time, your catabolic stress hormones plummet. Sleep quality is so foundational to performance that teams actually use standardized tools like the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index to formally track and evaluate their athletes.
There's this toxic misconception out there that sleeping less means you're grinding harder. But the data on elite athletes completely destroys that myth. Look at the numbers. Cristiano Ronaldo actively targets 8 hours of sleep. LeBron James logs 8 to 9 hours. Michael Phelps aims for 8.5 hours every single night. At the absolute highest levels of sport, getting 8+ hours of recovery isn't some luxury. It is a physiological necessity. Chronic sleep deprivation will literally lower your VO2 max, kill your reaction time, and skyrocket your chances of getting injured.
Finally, Section 5, Synergy for Athletic Development. Let's bring all of this together.
We're going to wrap up this explainer with an incredibly provocative thought from APJ Abdul Kalam. Dreams are not what you see in your sleep. Dreams are things which do not let you sleep. I think that perfectly captures the relentless, almost obsessive discipline it takes to become a champion. You could have the perfect type 2 muscle fibers and every genetic gift in the world, but if you don't have the discipline to properly fuel your energy systems, to calculate your daily energy needs, and to aggressively protect those 8 hours of deep biological recovery every single night, well, that talent is just going to stay dormant. The true blueprint of a champion is the absolute synergy of all these physiological traits working together. So what piece of your blueprint are you going to focus on optimizing today?